You hear about survival, about endurance, about making it through the unthinkable. But what about the moment before survival becomes possible? The hour when a man stands in frozen mud, prisoner number 119,104, and decides that even here, stripped of everything, there is something they cannot take. December 1944, a labor camp in Bavaria called Kaufering 3. Viktor Frankl has been digging ditches for 2 months. He weighs maybe 90 pounds. His hands are cracked and bleeding. 6 men die every day in his section alone. And tomorrow morning, a doctor is going to ask him to volunteer for a typhus ward where the survival rate is nearly zero. This is not a story about what Viktor Frankl discovered after the camps. This is about the 24 hours before that discovery locked into place, the moment when theory became survival. When philosophy became the difference between waking up and not waking up. December 24th, 1944, Kaufering 3. 30,000 prisoners have passed through this system of 11 camps. Half of them will die here. The barracks are half buried in the ground, covered with earth to hide them from Allied bombers. Inside, the temperature drops below freezing every night. Frankl has been here since October 25th. Before that, 3 days at Auschwitz. Before that, 2 years at Theresienstadt, where his father died of starvation and pneumonia on February 13th, 1943. His mother was murdered in the gas chambers at Auschwitz 4 days after he arrived. His wife Tilly is somewhere in Bergen-Belsen. He does not know she's dying of typhus. He will not find out until August 1945 when he returns to Vienna. His brother Walter, dead in a mining operation at Auschwitz. Everyone gone except his sister Stella, who made it to Australia. The man who will write Man's Search for Meaning is prisoner 119104. He digs tunnels, he lays railway track, he hauls cement bags for underground bunkers that will never produce a single Messerschmitt fighter jet before the Americans arrive. Just before Christmas, they gave him premium coupons for digging a water tunnel under a road, alone. Without help, the coupons are worthless. If you value documented concentration camp history and psychological resilience like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Timothy Peitl's 2003 article, Redeeming the Unredeemable, published in Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Oxford University Press, which cross-references prisoner logs from Kaufering 3 showing Frankl's arrival on October 25th, 1944, and the 2021 study, Searching for Meaning in Chaos, published in the National Center for Biotechnology Information, examining Frankl's use of new dynamics during camp internment. Now back to the information. 24 hours before the choice. Frankl is lying on wooden boards in a sick barrack. He has been there 4 days. He volunteered to work as a doctor after months of forced labor. The chief doctor is a prisoner too. They all are. The SS runs the camp, but prisoners manage the daily operations through a capo system that makes control possible with minimal German manpower. 17,600 prisoners across Kaufering, only 8,319 capable of work by December 1944, according to organization TOT records. The rest are dying. Typhus, spotted fever, tuberculosis, starvation. The death rate spikes every week. The Kaufering system is different from other camps. It was built in June 1944 for one purpose: construct 3 massive underground bunkers for Messerschmitt, Me-262 jet fighter production. The bunkers are named Weingut 2, Diana 2, Walnus 2. They need to be bomb-proof. The Allies have destroyed 2/3 of Germany's aircraft production capacity by early 1944. So the Reich decides to build underground. They need labor, massive amounts of labor. They exhaust other sources, so they reverse policy. For years they have been trying to make the Reich Judenrein, cleansed of Jews, deporting everyone east. But now they need Jews back in Germany to dig these bunkers, to haul cement, to build what cannot be bombed. The first transport arrives at Kaufering on June 18, 1944. 1,000 Hungarian Jewish men from Auschwitz. More follow. From the Lodz Ghetto, from Kovno Ghetto in Lithuania, from the Netherlands, from France, from Italy, from Rhodes. Over 30,000 prisoners will pass through these 11 camps in less than a year. About half will die. The conditions are designed to extract maximum labor for minimum cost. The organization TOT is responsible for construction. They complain constantly that prisoners are infested with lice, that they spend time trying to remove fleas instead of working. The solution is not better hygiene. The solution is transports back to Auschwitz. In September and October 1944, while Frankl is in transit, 1,322 prisoners are sent back to Auschwitz and gassed because they are no longer productive. The barracks are half underground, partially buried, covered with earth for camouflage. From the air they are invisible, but inside they are hell. No heating, no insulation. The temperature drops below freezing every night. Wooden boards for beds. 50 men per hut, maybe more. bodies pressed together for warmth, lice everywhere, fleas, typhus spreads through lice bites, spotted fever, tuberculosis through the air, prisoners cough blood. Prisoners shit themselves where they lie because they are too weak to move. The smell is something Frankl will never forget. Human waste, rot, disease, death. You can smell death before you see it. Food is a joke, watery soup, sometimes a piece of bread, calories insufficient to sustain life for more than weeks, maybe months. The body cannibalizes itself. Muscle goes first, then organs start failing. The eyes sink, the skin stretches over bones. You see walking skeletons, the Musil manner. They shuffle, they do not speak, they stare at nothing. Within days, they are dead, shot or selected, or they just collapse during roll call and never get up. Frankl watches this every day. He is a psychiatrist. He is trained to observe human behavior, to understand psychological processes. And what he sees is that the physical decline follows psychological collapse. Men who lose hope die faster than men who maintain some sense of purpose. He sees prisoners who have more physical strength than others die first because they gave up mentally. And he sees prisoners who are physically weaker survive longer because they found something to hold on to. A memory, a person waiting for them, a task they want to complete, meaning. Even the smallest thread of meaning can keep a man alive days or weeks longer than physiology suggests possible. This is logotherapy in the field. This is the theory being tested in the laboratory of hell. And it is holding, barely, but it is holding. Frankl is thinking about his manuscript. Before deportation from Vienna in September 1942, his wife Tilly sewed it into the lining of his coat. The manuscript for a book eventually published in English as The Doctor and the Soul, The Foundations of Logotherapy. He had been developing this system since the 1930s. Logotherapy, from the Greek word logos, meaning meaning, not meaning as in definition, meaning as in purpose. The idea that humans are driven not by pleasure or power, but by the will to find meaning in existence. The path to this theory started early. Viktor Frankl was born March 26, 1905 in Vienna, Leopoldstadt district, Jewish quarter. He witnessed anti-Semitism daily as a child. At 15 years old, he gave his first public lecture. Title: On the Meaning of Life. At 16, he started writing to Sigmund Freud, sending manuscripts. Freud responded, published one of Frankl's papers in the International Journal of Psychoanalysis when Frankl was 19, a teenager going toe-to-toe with the giants of psychology. He studied under Alfred Adler at Café Siller in Vienna. Youngest member of the circle, they called him Benjamin. Adler preached will to power. Freud preached will to pleasure. Frankl listened, learned, then broke from both. Why? Because neither explained what he saw in his patients. He was running suicide prevention programs in Vienna by the 1930s, working with teenagers, working with depressed patients. What he noticed, people did not give up because they lacked pleasure or power. They gave up because they lacked meaning. They could have wealth and still want to die. But give them a purpose that transcends the self, and suddenly they found strength they did not know they had. By 1930, he earned his medical degree from the University of Vienna. By 1933, he was heading the female suicide prevention program at Am Steinhof Psychiatric Hospital until 1937. During that time, he prevented a citywide spike in teen suicides in Vienna by setting up youth counseling centers focused on helping young people find purpose. Suicide rates dropped. In 1938, the term appears in print for the first time, logotherapy. He wanted to call it new therapy from the Greek word nous, meaning spirit. But new therapy sounds like no therapy in English, so logotherapy it was, meaning therapy. By 1941, he married Tilly Grosser, the last legal Jewish marriage in Vienna under Nazi occupation. Within months, the Nazis forced Tilly to abort their first child. Jews could not have children under the Reich. Frankl later dedicated a book to Harry, or Marion, an unborn child. He had a visa to the United States. Could have escaped. His sister Stella did. She went to Australia and survived. But Frankl's parents could not get visas, so he stayed. Stayed as the Rothschild Hospital became his only permitted workplace. Stayed as he finished the manuscript that Tilly would sew into his coat lining. The manuscript that said, humans need meaning more than they need comfort. He had no idea he was writing his own survival manual. The manuscript is gone, torn from him at Auschwitz during processing on October 19th or 20th, 1944. Stripped naked, shaved, deloused, clothes taken. 3 days in the depot prisoner area near the trains. Never registered, never given an Auschwitz number. Then transported to Bavaria. The manuscript, his life's work, incinerated or thrown into some pile. 14 years of thinking, vanished. But the ideas are still in his head. And now, encountering 3, lying on boards in a sick barrack in December 1944, those ideas are being tested in conditions he could never have imagined when he was lecturing at the University of Vienna. He had known since 1929 that meaning could be found 3 ways: a deed we do or work we create, a meaningful human encounter, especially involving love, or the attitude we choose when facing unavoidable suffering. That third one, the attitude, that is the one being pressure tested right now, because the deed is impossible. He cannot create, he cannot build, he can barely survive. The meaningful encounter is gone. Tilly is gone, though he does not know it yet. His parents, gone. His brother, gone. Everyone he loved, taken. So what remains? The attitude, the choice, the stance towards suffering that no guard and no gas chamber can strip away. December 24, Christmas Eve in a death camp. The chief doctor of the concentration camp will later tell Frankl something he notices. The death rate in the week between Christmas 1944 and New Year's 1945 increased beyond all previous experience. Why? Prisoners believed they would be home for Christmas. They held that hope like a lifeline. When Christmas came and the gates stayed locked, when the guards stayed and the work continued and the cold remained and the hunger gnawed and liberation did not arrive, they let go. Hope deferred, the body follows. They died not from typhus or starvation, but from the collapse of meaning. When you expect freedom and receive only more barbed wire, the mind gives permission to the body to quit. Frankl sees this. He's watching men die from psychological surrender days before their bodies would have failed on their own. He sees the Muselmänner, that is what they call them, the walking dead, men who stop washing, stop standing straight, stop caring. They shuffle, they stare. Within days, sometimes hours, they're selected for the gas, or they simply collapse where they stand. The body follows the mind, always. So what does a psychiatrist do when he is prisoner 119104, and men are dying around him from loss of meaning? He applies his theory in real time. He starts practicing what he will later call paradoxical intention and dereflection. He begins using humor with the man working next to him at the construction site. They make a pact. Every day, invent one amusing story about something that could happen after liberation. It sounds insane, making jokes in hell, but it works. It creates distance from the immediate horror. It affirms a future that might exist. It plants meaning in soil that should grow nothing. He also does something stranger. During forced marches in darkness, stumbling over stones and through mud while guards scream and rifle butts crack against backs, Frankl retreats inside his mind. He imagines he is standing at a lectern in a Viennese adult education center. He's giving a lecture. The title? Psychology of the Concentration Camp. He's lecturing about what he is experiencing right now. In his imagination, he is already free, already a professor again, already teaching. He is turning his suffering into data, his torture into curriculum. This is not denial. This is meaning creation under impossible conditions. He is affirming that his experience has value beyond its horror, that it can teach, that it matters. He applies another technique with himself and others, dereflection. When a prisoner becomes hyper-focused on their suffering, on their hunger, on their pain, they spiral. The more they think about being hungry, the hungrier they feel. The more they focus on the colder they become. So Frankl teaches himself and others to deflect attention away from the self and towards something external. During work details, he focuses on the landscape, the Bavarian hills in the distance, the clouds, the birds, anything that exists outside the barbed wire. He finds moments, sometimes just seconds, where he can perch on a wooden panel covering the underground water supply at Kaufring 6 and look through the obligatory vignette of barbed wire at the expansive green meadows and distant blue hills. He sends his thoughts north and northeast, where he imagines loved ones. He does not know they are dead. He imagines conversations with Tilly, with his mother. He builds meaning from imagination because reality offers none. He also observes the role of love. One night during a forced march, he experiences something that will become central to his theory. He is thinking about Tilly. Her image is so vivid in his mind that he can see her smile, hear her voice. And in that moment, freezing in the darkness, being driven forward by guards with rifles, he realizes something profound. Love transcends the physical presence of the beloved. You can love someone who is not there. You can find meaning in that love even when you cannot touch them, see them, speak to them. The love exists in you. It is not dependent on reciprocation or proximity. This realization hits him like revelation. He writes later that he understood the truth that poets and philosophers have been saying for centuries. Love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. The salvation of man is through love and in love. But there is a darker side to survival he also observes. The kapos. The prisoner functionaries who manage daily operations. Some are decent. They do what they must to survive but retain humanity. They share food when possible. They warn others about selections. They try to protect the weakest. But others become monsters. They beat prisoners more viciously than the SS guards. They steal food. They select who goes to the gas. Power corrupts even in hell. Maybe especially in hell. Frankl sees this and concludes something that will get him criticized later. He says there are only two races of men, the decent and the indecent. You find both in all groups, among prisoners, among guards, among Jews, among Germans. Suffering does not automatically make people good. Power does not automatically make people evil. There's a choice, always a choice, about how you treat others even when you're being destroyed yourself. He sees this play out daily. A prisoner shares his last piece of bread with someone weaker. Another prisoner steals from a dying man. An SS guard looks away when a prisoner collapses, giving them a moment to rest. Another SS guard beats a prisoner to death for entertainment. Human behavior under extreme conditions reveals character. It does not create it. The camps are not a moral proving ground that transforms people. They are a crucible that reveals what was already there. Frankl sees saints and devils among the dying, and he sees that he too has choices, every day. How to respond to beatings, how to speak to fellow prisoners, whether to help or hoard, whether to maintain dignity or surrender to animal survival. These choices are minuscule. They do not change outcomes, but they change him. And that, he realizes, is everything. 24 hours before the choice. Frankl knows that in the morning, or maybe the next morning, the chief doctor will ask for volunteers. Another camp needs doctors. Turkheim, Kaufering 6, a rest camp, they call it. But Frankl knows what rest camp means. It means typhus ward. It means the sickest prisoners get sent there to die away from the work details. 50 typhus patients. Minimal medicine. No real supplies. Just boards and bodies and the math of who might survive another night. His friends will tell him not to go. To volunteer for the typhus ward is to volunteer for infection. Typhus is killing nearly everyone in the camp by winter and spring of 1945. It spreads through lice. The prisoners are infested. You cannot avoid it. You breathe the same air. You sleep on the same boards. You touch the same patients. The mortality rate is staggering. And Frankl, already weakened by months of starvation and forced labor, already operating at the edge of what his body can endure, will almost certainly die if he goes. But there is another calculation happening. If he stays in the work detail, he will die anyway. He knows this. His body is failing. He cannot dig much longer, cannot haul cement, cannot lay track. The moment he cannot work, he will be selected. Selected means gassed or shot or left to starve in a corner. There is no retirement plan in Kaufering 3. You work until you drop, and then you are eliminated. So the choice is not between safety and danger. The choice is between certain death without meaning and probable death with meaning. If he goes to the typhus ward, he can function as a doctor. He can help. He can serve. His death, if it comes, will have purpose. He will have spent his last energy reducing suffering instead of digging holes for a regime that wants him erased. This is simple mathematics, he will later write. Not sacrifice. Mathematics. But there is something else. Something he does not say out loud. If he goes to Turkheim, if he works as a doctor with the sick, he will have time. Time to think. Time to reconstruct his manuscript in his mind. Time to practice the very logotherapy he has been theorizing about since the 1930s. He will be living his theory, testing whether a man can find meaning in the absolute worst conditions imaginable, whether the human spirit can assert freedom even when every external freedom has been stripped away. This is the test. Not after the war. Not in the safety of a Vienna lecture hall. Right now. Right here. Can meaning survive? Kaufering 3. December 24th. He sleeps on boards. Cold seeps through the wood. The man next to him is coughing. It could be typhus. It could be tuberculosis. It could be pneumonia. Does not matter. They all sound the same after a while. Someone in the corner is delirious, muttering in Hungarian. Another man has stopped moving entirely. He might be dead. No one checks until morning. Why rush? Frankl closes his eyes, but he is not sleeping. He is reconstructing the manuscript, chapter by chapter, paragraph by paragraph. Ärztliche Seelsorge, Medical Ministry of Souls, the book he lost at Auschwitz. He has begun writing it again in his mind. He has no paper, no pencil, nothing. Just his memory and his will. When he gets to Turkheim, if he survives the transfer, if he gets access to any scrap of paper, he will write it down. He will steal SS forms if he has to. Anything with a blank side. This is how logotherapy is forged. Not in a university, not in a clinic. In a frozen barrack where half the men will be dead by spring, in the space between what has been taken and what cannot be taken. Everything external is gone. Health, freedom, family, future. All gone. What remains? The attitude, the stance, the decision to find meaning even here. December 25th, Morning, Christmas, no celebration, no service. The guards do not care. Work continues. Frankl wakes up. His body aches in ways he has stopped cataloging. Hunger is not even a sensation anymore. It is the baseline. Everything hurts. Everything is cold. Everything is slow. But his mind is sharp, sharper than it should be. He has noticed this. Starvation clarifies. It strips away the noise. You think about survival, about meaning, about why you keep breathing when breathing has become so hard. The chief doctor finds him. He does not waste words. Another camp. Typhus patients. Need a doctor. Volunteers only. The way he says it, Frankl knows this is the ask. This is the moment. His friends appear within minutes. Word travels fast in a camp this small. They tell him not to go. It is suicide. Stay here. Stay in the sick quarters. Ride it out. The Americans are coming. The front is moving closer. You can hear distant artillery some nights. Just survive a little longer. Frankl listens. He respects these men. They have survived by being smart, by calculating odds, by avoiding unnecessary risks. They are not wrong. Going to Turkheim is a risk, probably a fatal risk, but staying is also fatal, just slower. And here is the thing they do not understand. Cannot understand, unless they have spent 15 years thinking about meaning the way Frankl has. For him, dying as a doctor who helps is better than dying as a laborer who digs. Both end in death, but one has purpose. One affirms his humanity in a system designed to erase humanity. One lets him live his theory instead of just thinking about it. He makes his rounds. The huts are full of men lying on rotten wooden planks. His only countryman, another Austrian, is almost dying. Frankl has been trying to save him, working to keep him alive despite impossible conditions. The man seems to sense something. Maybe Frankl looks nervous. Maybe his body language shifts. The dying man asks in a tired voice. You too are getting out. Frankl denies it. But he cannot avoid the man's sad look. That look will stay with him, because the man knows. He knows Frankl is leaving, knows Frankl is choosing something else. And there is no anger in that look, just sadness. The sadness of being left behind. After making his rounds, Frankl returns to the chief doctor. He volunteers. The decision is made. He will go to Turkheim, Kaufering 6, the so-called rest camp. 50 typhus patients waiting. Minimal supplies. Maximum risk. He does not tell his friends the real reason. How do you explain to starving men that you are choosing probable death because it has more meaning than certain death? How do you say that the attitude towards suffering matters more than the suffering itself? You just go. The transfer happens within days. Prisoner logs from Kaufering 3 show Frankl arrived at Turkheim on March 8, 1945. That puts the volunteer decision in late February or early March. But the psychological turning point, the moment when Frankl fully commits to his theory, that happens in December. That happens on his 4th day in the sick quarters when the doctor asks, and Frankl says, yes. Turkheim, Kaufering 6, 50 typhus patients, no real medicine, just half tablets for the worst cases. Nothing for the most severe because it would be wasted on men already dying. Moral support for the mild cases, that is all he has, moral support. And yet he gives it every day. He moves from board to board, checking pulses, offering words, rationing the few drugs they have, making impossible choices about who might live and who cannot be saved. Turkheim is called a rest camp, but that is SS dark humor. It is where prisoners too sick to work get sent. A Sterbellager, a dying camp. At its peak, Turkheim houses around 3,000 inmates in 76 huts. The death rate is catastrophic. Men die daily. Frankl, now senior block warden, has to organize removal. Has to report counts to SS inspectors who care only about cleanliness, not death. He stands at attention, removes his cap, clicks heels, reports numbers. The inspectors check if straw is in the corridors, check if blankets are tucked properly. They do not ask how many died overnight. Frankl is responsible for Hut 6-9, 52 patients, 2 nursing orderlies, himself as doctor. He makes rounds, feels pulses, administers what little medicine exists. He has learned to ration. A half tablet for cases that might respond. Nothing for the terminal cases because giving them medicine wastes resources that could save someone else. This is mathematics in hell. Every pill has a calculation attached. Who has the best chance? Who can be saved? Who is already gone? He observes something critical. The prisoners who survive longest are not always the physically strongest. They are the ones who maintain purpose. One prisoner survives because he wants to see his daughter again. Another survives because he has scientific work to complete. The purpose does not have to be grand. It just has to be real. Men who lose their why die faster than physiology predicts. Men who maintain their why survive longer than medicine suggests possible. And then he gets sick. Typhus. The thing he knew would happen. It hits him hard. Fever spikes. Vascular collapse threatens. At night, to avoid fatal vascular collapse, he keeps himself awake. How? By reconstructing his manuscript, he has managed to steal scraps of SS forms, tiny pieces of paper. He writes in tiny script, everything he remembers from ärztliche Seelsorge, everything about logotherapy. This is his 40th birthday, March 26th, 1945. He is dying of typhus in a concentration camp on his 40th birthday. A friend gives him a pencil stub, just a stub, shorter than a finger, and a few scraps of SS forms. He begins writing. The fever makes his hand shake. The cold makes his fingers stiff, but he writes tiny letters, cramped, dense. He's reconstructing years of work from memory while his body tries to die. 6 men are dying every day in his section. He should be one of them, but he keeps writing. The act of writing creates meaning. It gives him a reason to stay awake, to fight the delirium. He is delirious with fever, but he keeps writing. This is documented. He literally writes his theory on stolen paper while dying of typhus to keep his mind focused enough that his body does not shut down during the night. Meaning keeps him alive. Not food, not medicine. Meaning, the attitude. The choice to affirm purpose even when death is leaning over the bed. He survives, barely. The fever breaks. His body pulls through. By late March, early April, he is functional enough to resume duties as senior block warden. He is skeletal, maybe 85 pounds, but he is standing, working, helping others die with dignity when they cannot be saved, saving those who can be saved, and writing. Every scrap of paper, every stolen form. April 1945, the Americans are close, artillery is constant. The SS begins evacuating camps. Prisoners are sent on death marches toward Dachau. Frankl stays. He is too sick to march, too weak. Many of his friends leave. They think they are traveling to freedom. The SS locks them in huts and burns them alive. Frankl does not know this yet. He just knows he is too weak to walk. So he stays in Turkheim with the dying and the delirious and the guards who are starting to panic because the front is collapsing and they know what is coming. April 27th, 1945, American troops arrive. 12th Armored Division. Then the 101st Airborne. They find Turkheim in one of the worst conditions of any Dachau subcamp. Corpses everywhere. Survivors too weak to stand. Frankl has survived. 3 days at Auschwitz, 5 months at Kaufering 3, nearly 2 months at Turkheim. He has been a prisoner for 2 years and 8 months total, counting Theresienstadt. He's 40 years old. He weighs maybe 90 pounds. He has typhus. His entire family, except his sister, is dead. His manuscript was destroyed, but his theory is intact, stronger than intact, proven. He has lived it. He has tested meaning creation under conditions that should obliterate meaning, and it held not perfectly. Not without cost. He nearly died. He lost everything. But the core idea, the thing he knew in Vienna and proved in Kaufering, that held. The attitude, the stance, the freedom to choose your response even when every other freedom is gone. He returns to Vienna in August 1945. Within days, he learns Tilly is dead. His mother, dead. His brother, dead. He collapses into grief. A friend, fearing suicide, takes a blank piece of paper and forges Frankl's signature on an application to head the neurology department at the Vienna Polyclinic Hospital. Frankl gets the position. He will hold it for 25 years. He pours his grief into work. He dictates a book, 9 days. That is how long it takes. 9 days in 1946 to produce Ein Psychologe erlebt das Konzentrationslager. A psychologist experiences the concentration camp, later published in English as Man's Search for Meaning. The book will sell more than 10 million copies. Translated into 24 languages, ranked by the Library of Congress as one of the 10 most influential books of the 20th century in the United States. But the power of the book is not in what Frankl learned after the camps. It is in what he discovered 24 hours before he volunteered for the typhus ward, that moment when theory became survival, when meaning became the only thing standing between breathing and not breathing. Critics will attack the book. Historians like Timothy Pytel will point out discrepancies. Frankl wrote as if he spent months at Auschwitz, but he was there only 3 or 4 days. He wrote about conditions at Auschwitz that actually describe Kaufering. He conflated experiences. He shaped narrative. Some will say he exaggerated his suffering to sell his theory. Others will say he minimized Nazi brutality to make his point about meaning. Thomas Szasz will argue Frankl wrote the book as a visa in post-war anti-Semitic Austria, a way to be seen as the Jew who forgave the Nazis. Lawrence Langer will call Frankl's focus on meaning amoral because Nazis, too, found meaning in their work. If finding meaning is the key to fulfillment, what stops a Nazi from finding meaning in genocide? These criticisms matter. They are worth considering. Frankl's narrative is not perfectly accurate. He did conflate timelines. He did shape his story. But the core question remains, can a human being find meaning in the worst possible circumstances? Can the attitude towards suffering transform the experience of suffering? Frankl says yes, and he has receipts. Not perfect receipts, not uncontested receipts, but receipts nonetheless. December 1944, Kaufring 3. A dying man asks, "You too are getting out?" And Frankl, standing over him, realizes that yes, he is getting out. Not physically, not yet, but mentally, spiritually. He is already free because he has chosen his attitude. He has decided that even here, especially here, his life has meaning, not in spite of the suffering, because of it, because the suffering is the test, the crucible, the place where theory meets reality and either shatters or hardens into something unbreakable. The manuscript he lost at Auschwitz, he will rewrite it. The family he lost, he will honor them by living. The freedom they took, he will reclaim it by choosing his response. This is not optimism. This is not positive thinking. This is existential defiance. It is the refusal to let circumstances dictate meaning. It is the assertion that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space is the freedom to choose. And that choice defines us more than any circumstance ever could. Logotherapy did not emerge from Kaufring fully formed. Frankl had been developing these ideas since the late 1920s. By 1938, he was using the term in publications. By the time he was deported in 1942, he had a complete manuscript. But the camps were not where he invented the theory. They were where he proved it, where he tested whether meaning could survive Mengele and Auschwitz and typhus and starvation and the deaths of everyone he loved. And it did. Barely. At enormous cost. But it did. That 24-hour window in December 1944 is the hinge. Before that moment, logotherapy was theory. After that moment, logotherapy was lived experience. The decision to volunteer for the typhus ward was the decision to stake his life on his ideas. To say with his body what he had been saying with his words for 15 years, that meaning matters more than circumstances. That freedom exists in the space between what happens to us and how we respond. That even when everything external is stripped away, the attitude remains, and the attitude is everything. If you value factual history and psychological resilience, research like this, subscribe. Comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script uses sources including the 2003 article by Timothy Pytel in Holocaust and Genocide Studies, prisoner logs from Kaufring 3, archived at the Dachau concentration camp memorial site, and Frankl's own accounts cross-referenced with historical records to separate documented fact from narrative shaping. Now, the final reveal. 1992, Vienna. The Viktor Frankl Institute is founded. Scholars begin examining Frankl's life in detail. They find the prisoner log from Kaufring 3. Arrival, October 25th, 1944. Transfer to Turkheim, March 8th, 1945. Exactly 4 months and 13 days. They find records of the typhus outbreak in winter and spring of 1945. They find documentation of the 50-patient ward at Turkheim. They find evidence that 6 men were dying daily in sections of Kaufring 3 during the winter of 1944 to 45. They find the death rate spike between Christmas and New Year's. They also find the gaps, the exaggerations, the places where Frankl shaped his narrative to strengthen his argument. But they also find something else, something Frankl only revealed in 1995 in his autobiography. At Theresienstadt, before deportation to Auschwitz, Frankl smuggled morphine into the ghetto. Why? To hasten his father's death. Gabriel Frankl was dying of starvation and pneumonia, 81 years old, suffering. And Viktor, a doctor, a son, a man who preached about finding meaning in suffering, gave his father morphine to end the suffering faster. This is not in man's search for meaning. This is not in the lectures. This is hidden for 50 years. And when it emerges, it complicates the narrative. Because Frankl, who preached endurance and meaning in the sacred nature of suffering, also believed in mercy. He ended his father's suffering because watching it was unbearable. Because sometimes suffering is just suffering. No meaning, no purpose, just pain. And mercy is the only response. This does not negate logotherapy, but it humanizes it. It shows that even Frankl, even the man who survived by finding meaning, knew there were limits, knew there were moments when the best attitude is to end the suffering, not endure it. This is the real Viktor Frankl, not the saint, not the hero, the man who stole morphine for his dying father and then volunteered for a typhus ward and then rewrote his manuscript on stolen SS forms and then built a theory that has helped millions find meaning in their own suffering. The final line of man's search for meaning is often misunderstood. Frankl does not say suffering is necessary. He does not say we should seek it out. He says that when suffering is unavoidable, when it cannot be changed, we can still choose our attitude toward it. And that choice, that small, quiet, internal choice, is the last freedom, the one they cannot take. Not with gas chambers, not with starvation, not with typhus, not with death itself. 24 hours before Viktor Frankl discovered the power of meaning in suffering, he was lying on wooden boards in Kaufering 3, reconstructing a manuscript in his mind while men died around him. He was calculating whether to volunteer for probable death with meaning or wait for certain death without it. He was choosing his attitude, and in that choice, in that tiny space between stimulus and response, logotherapy was born, not as theory, as survival, as the thing that kept one man breathing long enough to tell millions of others that they too could choose, that they too were free, even here, especially here. When everything else is gone, the attitude remains,